Welcome to the Nano podcast. I'm your host, Will Chernlin, and I'm excited to have you join me on this journey through the world of NanoCap companies. For the past decade, I've talked to thousands of business owners across various industries. It's been an enlightening experience revealing the vast tapestries of entrepreneurship and innovation that thrives beneath the surface of mainstream media coverage. Each week, I will interview different leaders of NanoCap publicly traded companies to learn about their history, what they do now, and their future. As a reminder, none of this information is financial advice, and it is all for entertainment purposes only. Let's start this week's episode. Hi everyone. This week's episode, I'm Paul Allen, the president of Airship AI, stock ticker AISP. Airship AI is a leader in AI-driven video sensors and data management surveillance. Paul, thanks for coming on the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, Will.
So I usually start everyone's episode by kind of just going through their LinkedIn real quick. I would love to hear a little bit more about just kind of your journey of where you grew up, what made you want to sign up and be a Green Beret, and then how that somehow transitioned into kind of more like Fortune 100 kind of company with IBM, and then how that eventually led you to Airship AI.
Great question. Great place to start. So, I think early on, I come from a family with a strong legacy and history in the military, from my father to my grandparents. So I think that piece around the desire and the need to serve is part of community service, and what you owe your country was deeply instilled early on as a child. So I think that really was kind of what took me down the path of going into the military, and then from there, just being exposed to different avenues and paths within the military, and really wanting to try to achieve as much as I could, led me down the route of becoming a Green Beret and going the Special Forces path. I think all of that, when I then stepped back off of active duty and went into the Guard, where I continued my career in the special operations community, and then started going down the corporate world. A lot of the lessons learned, the things that I drew from the military, helped me there. And then ultimately, as I kind of got to understand better that commercial world, working for a giant company and seeing the pros and cons of that versus the military, and then ultimately going to smaller companies where I felt like I could be more effective, have more of a direct impact and control over what it is that we were trying to do. All of those lessons learned of what to do and what not to do collectively really led me here to Airship, where I saw this great opportunity with a company with just some phenomenal people, most importantly, but also some phenomenal technology, and where there were some markets and some opportunities underserved, and recognizing that from my legacy and history, both on the military and the commercial side, and then parlaying that into where we're at today.
And so I want to dig a little bit deeper into that from the point of view of, first and foremost, as a leader, how you have to decide that maybe it's unrealistic that your employees can actually live up to your expectations, since you have this kind of almost like special forces type Green Beret type standard you're trying to hold yourself and everyone else to. So how does that affect you as a leader? And then how have you used some lessons from the Green Beret to help you, but then also some lessons where you're like, this would never cut it into corporate America. This is not how to manage people who can quit whenever they want.
No, look, it is without a doubt a challenge, both for me personally in terms of my expectations for myself, and what I'm looking, and like many, certainly at this level, we are our own harshest critics and judges. We hold ourselves to potentially an unrealistic expectation, and I think that is a tough challenge to make sure that when we look at how we're managing and working with our peers and our employees, that we do set real and realistic expectations, that we don't judge as harshly. We can't expect that they're all going to be, the best and the brightest and super hungry and grind. And I get grief a lot of times from folks in town hall meetings, where I'll use the quote from Caddyshack, with Chevy Chase, and the world needs ditch diggers too, and not everybody's going to be the superstar. We need some people that just want to grind and get through things that they really enjoy. And just like in the military, not everybody wants to be a general, not everybody wants to be a sergeant major. The corporate world is the same. Not everybody wants to step up and take on leadership roles, and that's okay. And we've got to encourage and develop those individuals that want to be those folks that just grind and help us do the dirty day-to-day work that maybe somebody else doesn't like. And then look for those people that have the potential and can grow, and how do we help them do so?
Awesome. So we'll get back to Airship AI. In the current date of December 19th, we are right 2024. We're right in kind of the middle of the AI bull run. And as a discovery of what can even AI provide for us and such. Airship AI wasn't always called Airship AI. Can you tell me a little bit more about just kind of your beginnings in the company and then how the product has changed as technology's changed over the last few years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been here 8 years, going on 9. And when I joined, we really were a traditional video management platform, taking static cameras, fixed on the side of a building, doing any number of different roles, bringing that all in and allowing a customer to manage it. And really, independent of AI, just in general, there were a couple of key things that were happening in the technical world. And first was NVIDIA and the Jetson platform, allowing us to miniaturize and put capability at the edge, to do analytics and to do GP enabled capabilities. So that was a big piece. The transition to 5G, allowing us to move more data, structured and or unstructured, from the edge and getting it back to where it needed to be, was also significant. And then advancements around whether it's large language models or TensorNet and some of the other ways that we can do AI. Our focus internally is more on the object side of the house, so computer vision versus generative AI. But advancements in coding efficiency, how do we create models? How do we train them more quickly and deploy them more quickly? All of those things together, we were fortunate to see that confluence of events occurring. And we were able to take what we had already done from a legacy perspective and deploy some resources against that to, go work with NVIDIA to build this custom platform. It sits at the edge, leverage relationships with the major carriers and some others so that we can move video more effectively and efficiently across their networks, and build some custom models that allow our customers to do very unique things that maybe are more germane or specific to their environment than, let's say, maybe what's out there in the general world. If I look at like traditional COCO models or libraries, it's, hey, that's a boat. But maybe I want to be more specific to inboard versus outboard, cuddy cabin, fishing boat, go fast, etc. That's really where we've tried to take this platform and create differentiation for our customers, both in the government space and in the commercial space.
So you mentioned briefly there NVIDIA's Jetson chip. Just a few days ago, they released their new chip that they're coming out with. How much of your R&D is kind of trying to kind of almost like guess where NVIDIA is going next, or the capabilities that they're coming out with next? How much of it is that they give you some sort of like kind of like developer insights before they even launch the product, so you can start kind of going skating to where the puck's gonna be? How does that relationship work?
Yeah. So we work with them and partner with NVIDIA as part of their Metropolis program. So we've got a great relationship with folks across that program and in the larger organization. So in a lot of cases, we're talking about what we're doing, where we're going, customers that we're working with, use cases and challenges that we're trying to solve for. And they're great in terms of helping us with, hey, these are things to think about. Maybe this chip, maybe this platform is better. Maybe this group within our larger company could help you maybe move something further ahead because they've got some experience working with other folks in industry. So it's very much a partnership there where we're sharing information, we're sharing our use cases and our successes because that can benefit them. And we can potentially give them information about maybe where they should be focused on the product roadmap. Hey, this board is the perfect size and form factor, but maybe it's under powered in terms of memory. So if we could get this option, that would be great because that could help us, plug a gap. But ultimately, at the end of the day, and I think this is generally true across most of the deployment scenarios for AI, technology is moving faster than our users and our use cases. So we're seeing increases in processing and TOPS growth, et cetera. We're seeing all of that happen way faster than we're necessarily seeing either the use cases of how it could be used or the permissions and authorities of what it's going to be allowed to be used for. And, we just had Congress release a report, I believe yesterday, maybe day before, 200 some odd pages on guardrails for industry and business on, what AI can be used for and how it can be used in all of these different verticals. So in some cases, we are holding ourselves back or we're limiting what we can actually even take advantage of with the technology that already exists.
So we danced around the subject a little bit, but I would love just for you to be able to say in your own words, what does Airship AI do, and what are the key products that you offer?
Yeah. So the key for us is, there are a lot of AI companies that just put AI at the back end of their name or their website. And they might leverage AI or they might tie into AI somehow to accomplish, workflow. For us, we're training our own models, we're collecting our own data, we're building, compiling, and then rolling those models back into either edge appliances that we have developed and or back end software, whether it's in a data center or in the cloud. So for us, access to customer data and being able to create these custom models that really solve for a specific agency or a commercial retail entity's challenge is our real differentiation. That we've got these trusted relationships with an agency. We're running in these highly secure environments where the data and the analysis, goes into the national security realm, whether it's here in the homeland, whether it's overseas from a Department of Defense perspective. Um, there has to be that trust between both the supported agency and our team that if we're given access to data to train on, that we're protecting it and safeguarding it, that we're not applying and introducing biases into the models that could affect the outcome. So most simply, if we think about things that we can do, let's take a common one that's well known, license plate recognition. So that's easy. So I can read license plates, on cars driving down the road, but I could maybe also do the make, model, color of the vehicle and the country and the state of the license plate. So if maybe I saw the white Ford Bronco, but I didn't get the plate, now I can go search on a white Ford Bronco. Then further, I could say maybe only when I see white Ford Broncos do I want other things to occur. So really, AI, from our perspective, is just another set of eyes on a video stream. And it's creating efficiency for our customers such that they don't have to have people staring at a screen. AI can tell you, hey, instead of watching 100 traffic cameras, you tell me what you want to look for. I'll tell you when I think I see it. Then you put eyes on it from a human perspective. You say, yes, that's actually the vehicle, the person, whatever the object is I'm looking for. And then I make a decision as a human as to what to do with it. And that's what allows us to further take out, the chances of a bias driving a behavior because there's still a set of human eyes that validates that AI has done what it was supposed to do. That's really what we see as our differentiation and value add for the customers and the markets that we serve.
And so you mentioned that you kind of have to show a paper trail to the government or whoever you're selling to. That first off, you're going to keep the data secure, and second off, it's unbiased data. Is there like, pardon my ignorance, but is there like a SOC 2 report or a specific way that you can like show that where that comes linked to in AI? Or is it kind of a black box at certain points and you just say, hey, we promise that we're just going to keep your data safe? Or like, how is that even done?
Yeah, look, I mean, it runs the gamut in terms of the different security accreditations for things that we have to hold as a company. And as we're developing new software, whether it's AI or our core software, the accreditations for it to run either on premise or in a data center or in up to the FedRAMP high, cloud level. So each of those requirements and customer use cases directs differently how we protect their data, what access anybody is given to it, if any, how we protect our own internal networks and firewalls. So all of those things come into play when a customer talks to us about how we go partner together. And that can include not just physical security, but it's the virtual security, and it includes clearances for individuals where we might be given access to data that could exist at the secret or above level.
as I'm doing my research, I keep coming across like PR Newswire and different articles about how you all are signing contracts to protect the border. Or I think I read one that you're signing a contract with some corporation to protect their like shipping and such. Can you tell me just a little bit more about just like the specific use cases of why someone would sign up for you all? And then how it's different between what you're trying to do to like protect the nation opposed to maybe just doing asset protection or not even doing that. I'm just doing like forecasting and trying to figure out how much inventory is coming in now.
Yeah. So what we found, generally speaking, is that this the similarities between different verticals and customers is typically much greater than an average individual might assume. So the sensors and cameras and capabilities that a government agency might be using to look at the border, for example, may not be dissimilar to those that a commercial entity is using to manage a freight yard. And a radar, a camera that they're using to detect that somebody's jumping a fence or throwing a package over a fence, or other things of that nature. So the use cases we typically find can be very similar between a lot of these different agencies and entities. It's just the permissions and authorities maybe that they have on how they can collect data and what they can do with it, and what the ultimate use of that data is what's the most different. So on a government side, my data and evidence is always going to be used in an evidentiary world. Where in the commercial space, it may not be. This may be for public safety or employee safety, but could eclipse and be given to law enforcement if it's an individual I detected carrying a gun, onto my campus. So understanding how to break that down and to segment out the different data flows so that only the right people get to see the right levels of data, so that every, security individual can't have access to the license plate recognition system, so that, use the common, concern over that they're not putting, a partner's license plate in there to track, what their partner does. They're only allowed to see what they're allowed to see, and everything is tracked and managed. So somebody can come back and say, "Hey, you access the system you're not authorized to, or you put a plate in that wasn't justified."
Yeah, hey, do you have kind of like almost like a delay then in your training where you say, hey, we're going to let people go through and take the video for training data a week after it's already happened, so we know that won't be any interference or funny business? Or like, how do you handle the security and like the AI tagging and training?
Yeah, so when we do that, and it could happen in a multitude of ways. It could be rendering a video where we're going to extract out or blur out things that are not important, or we're using privacy masking to hide other things that we don't want to get dragged into the model. So there's a lot of tools that we have at our disposal to help us make sure that when we're training a model on whatever that object or item of interest is, that we're really just training on that, and that we're extruding out any ancillary information that could affect the quality of the model and or potentially introduce bias. So there's software tools and other capabilities that we have that we leverage to do that. And then we also, when we then look at when we train and how we train, and when and how we make data available to others, whether it's from an evidence, if it's going to court in the judicial process, or some other purpose, then yeah, we can set timers for how long data is going to be made available, how quickly it gets deleted, how long users have access to that, or maybe they don't get access to it until, to your point, some certain period of time expires. There's lots of different ways that we can allow customers to create very detailed parameters for their users and user groups on what they're allowed to do, when they're allowed to do it, and how they're allowed to do it. That is the number one thing that we typically work most closely with customers on, is ensuring that even within their own organization, that the privacy of data, especially when there's PII data involved, is very closely managed and monitored.
So the stock is doing amazing this year, especially since the election, with Trump policies probably going to have an emphasis on protecting the border and such. Walk me through what it's like at the office, what it's been like day by day, honestly, since like the Biden Trump debate. And if you started kind of planning then, if ramping up efforts, getting ready for what's going to happen, and then the election day, then the day after election, if you're just making a bunch of phone calls, like just kind of walk me through how it's been.
Yeah. So if we look at it from a company perspective, and this is really core to going back to your question around managing our people and keeping people focused on what we're trying to solve for. Um, Regardless of your position from a social perspective, et cetera, on the migrant crisis and the challenges associated with it, um, our view is the reality is people are coming across the border every day, and that's going to happen regardless of the administration. And they need to be treated fairly and humanely. And video can be that ultimate differentiator on, hey, I don't care, ultimately what color you are. I don't care what you're wearing, where you came from. I'm just recording what's actually going on. And then somebody else is going to come in and say, did I or the other person do something right or wrong, and what actually happened? So video is that great platform that allows you to, um, arguably on both sides of the coin, cover your own butt. Make sure that. So if I then look at the role video and AI can play, if my software and our capabilities can help us get a group of Border Patrol agents to a group of individuals coming across that maybe are running low on water and food, struggling with extreme heat. The quicker I can help them find those individuals and get them the help that they need, get them into a Border Patrol sector station, then I'm not just helping secure the border, and I'm supporting national security events and requirements. I'm helping them enforce the law, but I'm also helping from a humane and a personal perspective that these individuals are going to get help more quickly than they might have otherwise. So we look at it from both perspectives that, what we're doing and the way that we do it really helps everybody. And if we look at then human trafficking and fentanyl and things of that nature, these are things that, generally have good bipartisan support. Everybody believes we need to be helping people coming across the border. How we do it and what we do with them once that's done, that's for politics to decide. So it's easy to keep our team excited and focused on these challenges we're trying to solve for because there is the human element. And that's critical to, an employee base where, not everybody's going to agree with what law enforcement or the federal government or some other agency or entity is going to do. So the way we work around that, we keep everybody excited and focused, is we keep the human element at the heart of everything. And that goes back to reducing biases and removing biases so that when we put our technology out there, we're comfortable it's going to be used in a right way. So if I take that assumption of the problems we're trying to solve for having good bipartisan support, and now I overlay the excitement around the incoming administration and their stated focus on the digital wall, the physical wall, then that's just a natural parlayer or multiplier for the things that we're already doing that had bipartisan support before. So lots of excitement. The nomination for the head of Border Patrol or for the head of CBP, Mr. Scott, long tenured individual. We think he's going to be a great fit. An agent's agent, understands a lot of the challenges and problems. So somebody that's going to be able to work very easily with the new administration. The borders are Tom Homan. The borders are down in Texas, Mike Banks. We've got a better relationship there because it's been a longer standing position, but we're absolutely working with or communicating through the agencies in these groups to make sure that these individuals know the capabilities that we can bring to bear to help them with what we believe are the tasks and mandates that they're going to be given, once the transfer of power occurs.
And did you have to email any of your suppliers saying, "Hey, make sure you're in stock," or say, "Hey, we're gonna start opening up some job openings for people who can help with sales and government compliance and such," or are you saying right at this exact moment, focus on just making the best product possible for your customers, wait for the orders to come in, let's not get ahead of ourselves?
It's a little bit of both. So we did a capital raise last year in September, and it was a multi-purpose raise. But part of that was to lean forward on some some key folks that we know we needed to add to the team that could help us with some of these really large deals and contracts that we already had in our pipeline. And then as well, making sure that we had the right resources, at least identified and on the bench, such that if we did win some of these large deals and some of these things that we think are going to happen, very early on after the transfer of power with, congressional emergency funding or plus ups, et cetera, making sure that we were as well prepared as possible without arguably leaning too far ahead over our skis. So, getting all of that in place was critical. Obviously, continuing resolution, still in the midst of being debated today, is going to affect a lot of these things. So, understanding all of the various dynamics at play and trying to take the most reasonable risk approach to how much do we lean ahead, how much stock do we put into inventory ahead of anticipation of orders, et cetera. These are all things that we're absolutely doing. But what's unique about our company, certainly as compared to the majority of SPACs, is that we were organically funded. We never took on debt from venture capital, private equity. So we had to have run the business with the mind of, hey, if we're not making money, we can't keep going. So we've always been very financially smart and efficient with how we use what money and capital we have, and generally more risk adverse. So the transition to going public allowed us that ability to, go raise capital, have access to the financial markets, and get that financial transparency with our government and commercial customers that we're ready to step into these bigger, larger contracts and opportunities.
No, yeah, nothing better than being disciplined your whole life and then now getting to kind of show your work and prove it to the public markets quarter in, quarter out and say, hey, no, we really walk the walk. So as we wrap up here, tell me, in your ideal perfect world, what does Airship AI look like in 5 to 10 years? What are you all up to? What's the breakthrough technology that might not exist now that you hope you can get into? What does your perfect world look like when you look into your crystal ball?
Yeah. So if I look at where I think we'd like to be, we want to continue our expansion into the government space beyond some of the markets that we've already got, very strong footprints and saturation into today. I think we really want to continue to focus on tailored solutions that really solve actual problems rather than just building products to sit on a shelf that are kind of one size fits all, really focusing on what are the challenges and problems that we're facing, whether it's socially in the law enforcement space, in the border or the defense space. Look at all of the obvious news around the drones and New York, New Jersey, et cetera. How do we help solve some of those challenges with using AI and sensors to do drone tracking, detection, and classification? Really, that focus on how can we help go make our world, our homeland, a better, safer place through the skill sets and the technologies that we have. And AI is going to absolutely be critical to that. So following along where the government goes with these guardrails on what's going to be permissible, what isn't, how do we help influence policy and direction on, hey, have you thought about this? Being recognized as a subject matter expert and or leader in this space and trying to help drive and influence policies so that we can actually get caught up with what the technology is already at today and progress as technology does. Because the reality is some of our near peer competitors in the global space, some of them follow and have guardrails and some don't. And we can't let the lack of guardrails keep us from taking advantage of the technologies and the capabilities we have today. We're going to find ourselves falling behind very quickly. And I think we've learned this multiple times that the further you get behind, the harder it is to catch up, especially when technology is moving at the rate and pace that it is.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I usually end it with asking someone what gets them excited, what gets them out of bed about the company in the morning. But with your military service background combined with now, like you said, the drones, the border, the AI, you have all the tailwinds behind you. It seems pretty obvious what could get you excited about the company especially the last few years. So I'll keep that to myself. So if people want to learn more about Airship AI, what you all do, where should I send my audience?
So first, our website, AISP.ai, a great place to start. So we've got good overviews of the product and some of the capabilities that we have. And then out in the broader market, off of our investor relations website there, you can certainly click the links on, shareholder letters and our Qs and our K to get, more insight into the management commentary on what we're doing, what we're working on, where we're seeing our successes, and really where we're trying to head as a company.
Thank you so much, Paul, for first and foremost your service, and then for coming on the podcast. For those of you still listening, please remember to subscribe and review. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Will.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not provide financial, legal, or any other advice. The information is not investment advice or any offer to buy or sell any securities or to make any investment. The views expressed by the guests are their own, and any reference to third-party products, services, or information does not constitute an endorsement, therefore, by NanoCap Podcast or its affiliates. The NanoCap Podcast Express disclaims all liability for any individual's use